这个故事如果你听起来不累，那么你的听力水平在生活中是完全够用的。要持续提升英文，记得点击订阅按钮。我们开始吧。
A simple letter once carried a secret that could cost a man his life. In the middle of the 1800s, when war split the United States into two sides, soldiers wrote home on thin sheets of paper that smelled of smoke and mud. Every word they wrote could be checked by officers. Lines were counted. Names were watched. Any sign of fear or doubt could bring trouble. A letter was not just a letter. It was proof of loyalty. One young soldier named Thomas sat by a weak campfire and tried to tell his wife how bad things had become. Food was short. Boots were torn. Men were sick. He could not write those words in a clear way. If he did, the letter might never leave the camp. So he wrote about the weather. He wrote about the long walks. He wrote that the nights were very cold and quiet. The words looked calm. They looked safe. But Thomas pressed his pencil harder in some spots. Between the printed lines of the paper, in the narrow white space, he added tiny marks. He squeezed short phrases into the gaps. No food. 3 men gone. Pray for us. The writing was small, almost hidden. To a quick reader, it was nothing. To his wife, it was everything. When the letter reached home weeks later, his wife Mary held it to the light. She knew her husband's hand. She saw the faint strokes between the lines. She slowed down. She read what was written in the open space. And then she looked at the tight little words hiding in the cracks. Her heart raced. The real story was not on the lines. It was between them. This way of writing was not new. Long before that war, monks in Europe copied books by hand. Paper was rare and costly. If they made a mistake, they did not throw the page away. They wrote small notes between the lines. Scholars later called these notes interlinear glosses. The extra words helped explain the main text. Over time, readers learned that the most important clues were sometimes not in the big letters, but in the small ones tucked between. In the 1600s and 1700s, writers who feared punishment often hid their thoughts in plain sight. They used soft words on the surface and sharp meaning below. A poem about a storm could be about a king. A story about a broken cart could be about a broken law. Smart readers caught on. They learned to slow down and search for what was not said in a loud voice. By the early 1800s, newspapers were growing fast. Editors had to be careful. If they attacked the wrong person in a direct way, they could lose their jobs or worse. So they learned to hint. They praised someone too much, in a way that felt strange. They asked polite questions that did not sound polite at all. Readers began to say that you had to read between the lines to know what the paper truly meant. The phrase started to appear in print around the 1830s. It described the act of looking past the clear words to find a hidden message. It carried the image of those tiny notes squeezed into the narrow gaps of a page. It carried the memory of letters like Thomas's, where love and fear lived in the white space. Back in the camp, Thomas almost paid a high price for his small trick. One night, an officer picked up a stack of letters and held them close to the firelight. He flipped through them with bored eyes. When he reached Thomas's page, he paused. The pencil marks looked darker in some places. He leaned closer. Thomas stood still. His breath felt loud in his own ears. The officer turned the page sideways. For a long second, it seemed he might see the tiny words hiding there. Then someone called his name from across the camp. He tossed the stack back on the crate and walked away. Thomas did not sleep that night. He had taken a risk, not with a gun, but with a pencil. A few thin strokes between lines carried more danger than any shout. Months later, Mary wrote back in careful code of her own. She spoke of the garden doing poorly when she meant money was tight. She wrote that the old dog still waits by the gate when she meant she still hoped for his return. They built a quiet bridge made of hidden meaning. When the war ended, Thomas came home with tired eyes and shaking hands. He kept those letters in a wooden box. Years passed. Their son found them one summer afternoon. He read the neat lines about weather and walks. He almost closed the box, thinking they were dull. Then he noticed the cramped marks between the lines. He felt a chill as he understood. The real story of his father's fear, hunger, and love had been there all along, tucked into silence. Language works like that in every age. A friend says, "I'm fine," but their voice is flat. A boss says, "Interesting idea," but does not look up from the desk. A child says, "It doesn't matter," and kicks a stone across the yard. The truth is often hiding in tone, in pause, in what is left unsaid. To read between the lines is not about being suspicious of everyone. It is about paying attention. It is about seeing the space around the words. It asks you to notice the small signs, the tight smiles, the extra long silence before an answer. The phrase carries ink and paper in its bones. It carries monks bent over desks, editors choosing careful words, soldiers risking a secret note to the ones they loved. It reminds us that speech has layers. There is the surface, smooth and clear. Then there is the depth, where fear, hope, and truth move quietly. You have seen it in your own life. A text that says sure can mean joy, anger, or hurt. A short reply can hide a long story. If you only read the lines, you may miss the point. If you slow down and read between them, You may understand a heart. Some of the most important messages you will ever receive will not shout. They will whisper from the margins. They will wait in the white space, asking you to look closer.
能以非母语者的身份专注学习到现在，这本身就是很棒的进步。真诚感谢你的观看。如果你觉得本期内容实用，点赞或留言让我知道你的想法，这对我持续创作非常重要。我们下期见。